What are the hallmarks of great experience marketing, and what lessons can we incorporate into the online communities that we build? My guest today is Nasya Kamrat, and we're going to be talking about her amazing startup, Concierge AI, and all manner of things, community and experience building together. Stay tuned for a great show. She is an award-winning creative strategist with over 20 years in marketing, experience design, and brand storytelling, a CEO and CXO leading at the intersection of marketing, experience, and the future of brand engagement. And we've talked a lot about AI together. So I think we're going to have a fantastic conversation today. Let's give a warm welcome to my guest on the show, Nasya Kamrat. Nasya, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. I know you're in the midst of getting ready for a big launch of your stealth company that is coming up, and maybe you'll drop a couple of hints or spoilers for us today if we have the chance.
Happy to. Yeah, for sure.
So you and I connected maybe just a month ago and started having some conversations about communities and third spaces and this work. And I know we're going to have you on the live stream. This is a special episode that we're recording as a one-off. But I'm just kind of curious, can you talk a little bit about your professional journey and how you came to be known as a brand storyteller and strategist? I'm always interested in how we get into these careers that weren't really well defined maybe 20 or more years ago.
100%. And I think I feel origin stories are so much part of who we are as humans, and there's so many ways to do that. So my origin story is a little bit windy, and I think all good ones are. They should be. So I thought I was gonna be a theater director and writer, a playwright. And so I moved to New York, and I had all these big dreams, and I was working in theater, and I realized they don't get health insurance. Like, you don't get all the things that go into being a starving artist. And so I found myself working in advertising. And I was like, I'm going to do this for a year, get a couple things in order, and then I'm going to go back to my love of directing theater. And I always directed like sort of that, not Broadway, more like immersive theater, before immersive theater was a thing. This is back in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And so, but I started working at an agency, and 8 years later, I'm still at that agency, worked my way up from a assistant and an admin all the way to a creative lead, and then was like, you know what, I can do this on my own. And so I left that, and I started my own storytelling and experience design agency back in 2012. And really what we did was we helped brands tell their stories. We built experiences, we built stories that help brands reach their audiences and build the community that they're trying to build. And a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what, I think I'm on to my next. And so I exited my agency after 12 years and have been building my next since then. But everything that I've done is really about how do you use story, how do you use experiences to build communities, to build sort of fandom, and allow brands specifically to be able to reach their audiences in more authentic ways. And that sort of has led me to the work that I'm doing now as well.
I love the bridge that you're building between the brand storytelling to create communities, to create fandoms, because that is the journey that we try to create with community spaces, whether they're online or whether they're in person. We want to make people feel an affinity or connection with the brand or the organization or the mission, or that's the list of things that bring people together for the community. And I worry that so many brands think about a community as a place to throw their customers so that they can do self-help and peer support, kind of stuff. There's so much more than that, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, communities are meant for belonging, right? when we first talked, we talked about this idea of third spaces, right? And that's always been something that I've been fascinated with in terms of the work that I've done in experience design and building physical experiences for folks. And when you think about third spaces, it's a place where belonging happens, where you have community. It's not your house, it's not your work. It's this other place where you go to build connection. And I think if brands start thinking about whether it's a physical or an online community, is as an actual space where people can go to feel like they belong, to feel like they're cared for, to feel like they're being heard. That is what a real community is. And I think the brands that get it do it really well. And then there are a lot of brands who are like, oh no, this is a place to sell more stuff, right? And I think the ones that really have care and connection and how do we create space for the community to connect with one another, because as humans, that's what we want. Like, that's the thing that sort of differentiates. We want to connect. We want to be together. We want to feel like we belong to something that's larger than ourselves. And I think if you are an organization, whether that's internally with your staff or externally with your customers, finding ways to bridge that and make that space where people really feel like they are part of something, that builds loyalty and fandom and all the things that brands want, right? But it has to be done with like authenticity and it's a little bit, it's a delicate balance, I would say. A lot of brands do it really well, and then a lot of brands don't.
Not as well as they maybe could, right? Yes.
Exactly. Or as well as they think they should, right?
Yeah. So I love that. Unless our audience think what third spaces, what kind of marketing jargon is this thing? So third spaces is actually a very old idea, and I'm going to get theater nerdy on you because I was a literature major, and so this is the Shakespearean retreat to the green world. That there is, the place where the characters are in the city and they're like all at each other's throats and at odds with each other. And then there's this thing that brings them out to the country, and it redefines relationships. It is transformative. It's a place where people can forge connections with each other because it is a little more sheltered. It's a little bit away from the expected context of maybe where they were before. And I feel like we're always trying to create these green spaces for connection and transformation with ourselves.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I'm a firm Gen Xer, and so for me, I grew up in the '80s. So malls were like the third, and intentionally designed to be third spaces, right? Like that was the goal of the mall, particularly back in the '80s. And I think we don't have that much anymore. We don't have those places that are like, oh, I'm gonna go and like I just know I'll see my friends there, right? I'm gonna go to this place where I just know I'll run into someone who I haven't seen in them. All those things that just made those like chance encounters of places where it's a place where you feel like it accepts you and your community. I think those are the places that, particularly post-COVID, we've been missing. And I feel like there's this world where people are trying to get that, and they're trying to do it online communities, they're trying to do it physical stuff, but there's a world that this all should be connected together to feel really, authentic.
And as somebody that spends a lot of time in online communities and in online meetings and feels as comfortable as I feel about those spaces and as passionate as I feel about their value to connecting people across great geographical distances or time distances, there is something missing from the in-person, that you cannot get unless you're in a face-to-face in the room with people. There is like, we are physical beings. And so like transferring our essences across the ether like this, as good as the technology has become at reducing some of those social barriers to connection, I have some very good friends that I've never met face-to-face. It's still not quite, there's, it's the French je ne sais quoi. I don't know what, there's just a little something missing there that I don't get unless I have a live meeting. And I think for me, one of those early experiences was gaming communities. I was in an online game community for a long time and didn't really get the sense of the warmth of those connections until I met those individuals at a game convention, like live. And it was suddenly like, wow, you guys have been my friends all this time. And like absolutely made it easier to form those trusting friendships because you already knew them online, which was more tenuous. You only know those individuals through text, or maybe a graphical interface of some kind. So it's exciting to see how technology can help us, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know that I had a
I
point
think,
there, but yeah.
no, I think everyone, there's so much about, and I think both these things can be true. So what I'm about to say, I think technology makes human connection really hard, and it also makes it really remarkable. So we know what social and how many articles are about social media and how everyone's disconnected and all of these things, and that is true. But I believe that if you create and build technology with this idea of community and intimacy and human connection in mind, you can actually create stronger bonds between people and stronger places where people can connect. And I think that's why I'm excited about what my next is. And I think, and I could tell a little bit here. Yeah. And so we're soft launching. We'll be launching a little bit louder very, very soon. And it's interesting because I'm thinking about my entire origin story and what's led me to this point. But so my next is that we are building or we've built a concierge AI called Nia. Nia is our neural intelligence agents, and our first product is specifically built for the hospitality sector, which I feel is the best when it comes to customer experience. But what we do is we create these really frictionless, personalized experiences at scale, and so that we are able to get people connecting and taking all that sort of friction that comes with travel or going to a hotel or going on a cruise or going to a retail environment, getting all that friction away so people can get off their phones and just be together. We do that both for the customers, and we also do that for the actual staff. And that sort of holistic ecosystem creates for a really remarkable community in the end, because you're creating these really personalized, robust experiences at scale, or intimacy at scale. And I believe when technology fades into the background and it's just there just to be supportive, you can do really amazing things. And I think you can do really amazing things for that human connection, for that belonging, for that community building. And so, we're really excited. We have some great traction already. And it's a totally different space. But at the same time, it feels like it makes a lot of sense. Like when I think about it as like the journey, now I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm building a concierge AI. So
what you said about technology, letting technology fade into the background and just letting it help build community, that's at the center of what why I picked the Clocktower as the metaphor for my consultancy work, which is, the old Clocktower was the center of the town square, and marked out the hours. It was a technology that structured life, but it faded into the background. And so, so the best technologies do that. I'm excited to hear about Nia. So I'm going to ask a question that's probably on a lot of people's minds. So wait, you're creating this AI engine that's going to help me feel more connected to community. How is that? How is that possible? Am I talking to a chatbot, or how is that going to work?
So we're a concierge. So imagine being able to have, at the push of a button, someone helping you with anything you might need. If you need to go book a massage, if you need to go order food, if you need to ask a question about something like, where do I find X or Y or Z? All those things that make experiences challenging, those things that sort of stand in the way of you and I having a conversation, you can do that easily. And so that's what we're building. So we specifically called ourselves a concierge AI because it's not a chatbot. It's a conversational, really smart, really intuitive, really empathetic conversation that allows people to get what they need as quickly as possible so they can go and enjoy the moment and all those moments that happen when you're traveling. So I think a lot about it, like when you travel, right? Think about, I don't know, I have two kids. I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, and traveling is challenging, to say the least. Like it's hard. It's hard to challenge with 2 kids, right? Little ones. And so we have to book our tickets. We have to go and get the car. We have to go and get where do I find food? Or the kid doesn't want pizza, they want a rice bowl. All those things that just make it hard to just get excited by the fact that we're going to go on a great family trip. All those moments, if you had like a really amazing concierge or assistant that just does that for you, then you don't have to worry about it. And I think on the staff side, imagine if you were able to see holistically all of the questions and the challenges that people are asking, so you can create better service, so you can create more holistic personalized service so that people feel like they're actually in a relationship as opposed to just like a transaction. And so that's what we've built, and it's exciting because I believe that AI is an incredibly powerful tool, but we don't believe that it's a tool. We believe that if you want to use AI, you use it as an experience. If you create a really remarkable experience that people want to use, that people want to engage with, you are actually using it to the best of its ability. And so that's what we've built. And so, yes, it sounds crazy. Like, I get it. Like, we are in the future. Like, I totally understand. Like, this is no longer like we are officially in the future now. But I do believe that we have all of this technology at our fingertips to make easier, more frictionless, more simplistic moments. And if you have that, then you and I can have a better conversation, because I'm not worried about what I'm going to go do next, what my schedule, like all those things just go away. They fade into the background.
It's taking care of that nasty stuff. It's
right.
clearing away the cruft and really allowing me to have a better conversation with you. And when I'm with
exactly. Right. Or enjoy my 2-year-old who's doing something silly at the airport, and I want to be able to actually enjoy that moment. Or like, I don't need to worry about a dinner reservation because it's already taken care of, and I can go and actually be with my kids, or with my husband, or with my colleague, whatever those things are. And I think that's where magic happens, right? And we're doing that, like, so yes, we're like enhancing the customer experience, but we're also optimizing operations for the staff. We're making it easier for them to do their job because they have better data. We're doing a lot of capturing of like contextual sentiment data. So not just like a bias survey at the end of an experience. It's like every time I'm talking to it, saying, oh, this is what she's feeling like in that moment, in that space. So we're making better decisions for the staff side. And then ultimately on the brand side, we're a B2B, right? We're helping drive revenue. If you know more what makes people tick and what they like and what they love, you're creating more personalized experiences for them, and they're not getting a bunch of random silliness that they don't want. They're getting the things that actually matter to them. And those 3 things working together make a really powerful experience, and ultimately make a really powerful community, I believe, for both customers and for staff, and the whole ecosystem of what an organization needs.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I mean, it sounds like what you're describing is something that's and that's probably a loaded term for someone working in AI. It's something agentic.
Yeah.
Is it performing tasks?
We are past agentic. So okay. This is a great way to describe it. So like, I don't know, AI 1.0 is, LLMs, right? Like those are really good at getting you information really quickly. Like I can go into ChatGPT and get any information I want, and it's amazing, right? And it's so super great, and I get all this information, and it makes my job really easy because I'm getting this download. Agentic AI, which is, I was just at CES and everyone was talking about this agentic AI and all these things. Right. Agentic AI is really good at taking all that information and doing very specific tasks. I'm going to do a thing. What we have built, I believe, is past agentic AI into this idea of concierge AI, where we're doing it with empathy. We're doing it with almost anticipatory, that we know that every time you go to that bar, you get that drink. And so when Todd comes up, it's like going into Cheers. Hey, this is your cocktail of preference, because we know that, because we already have that. And it's anticipating those moments of joy, those moments of friction, all those things, so that people can have a more remarkable experience, right? And that's what we built. So we are, well, everyone's thinking about just like point A to point B, getting the task done. we are saying, no, it's so much more than that. It's about the experience of that. It's anticipating those needs. It's doing it in a way that feels really personalized and organic in some ways, which is a weird thing to say about AI, but that I do think is a big differentiator in terms of what we've built. So we are now in 1.0 with ChatGPT. We have 2.0, which is like this agentic AI that everyone's talking about right now. And I think that we've already built towards the future. And part of the reason why we've been in stealth for so long is really to sort of capture this really unique thing of Concierge AI that no one else is really thinking about, because no one else has the background of being an experience designer. Like my co-founder, one of my co-founders is like an ex-Disney Imagineer, right?
Yeah, nice.
You know, it's just we understand experiences in ways that engineers aren't really looking at right now. And that's why what we built is so special. Like our CTO, my co-founder who sort of built the technology, who and by the way, when I first left my last company, I was like, I am never going to be a founder again. I'm never going to be a CEO again. I'm going to go get a job and whatever. And like, and then I met Blair and I saw what he was building and I was like, oh my God, this is game changing. This can really change the world and change it in a way that's really remarkable. And I don't know. I feel like creating ethical, responsible AI is actually what the next job that needs to be done is, right? I really need to focus on that. And so that's part of why much to my husband's thing, he was like, yeah, I was like, I'm not going to do this again. And then like within 9 months, here I am again, building another company. So
When you get that bug to start companies, it just sticks with you. You know, it's hard to get it out of the bloodstream. Yeah.
It really is. I tried really hard. Well, no, maybe I didn't. I wanted to try really hard, we'll say. Yeah.
So I'm really excited about this concept, and it makes me think in a couple of ways. Like, so it's the first thing I thought of. I can't remember if this is Bruce Sterling or Charlie Strauss. Probably Bruce Sterling. What did he say about the future is already here? It's just not well distributed yet, you know. And
yeah,
so it's exciting to hear about your signal from the future and what you're bringing to market here, because I think that the implications when it does become something that's more commonly available will change all online communities in significant ways, because it's not simply that there'll be a community manager to greet you or other members to necessarily greet you, but there'll be a concierge possibly greeting you when you enter into any kind of online community space, whether it's a 3D virtual world environment or a text-based discussion forum, old school, that is going to empathetically maybe be able to determine with your onboarding questions, you know, maybe who you should be speaking with or the topics that it thinks will be of most interest to you based on what you said. Hey, you know what? There's a hot conversation going on around experience marketing in this channel. You know, can I introduce you to the people working there? Great, wonderful. Or you know, as you were saying, I'm sure I'm not even imagining all the possibilities with this yet, but but something that will remove some of the friction from tasks or problems you're trying to solve. Which are maybe your reason for being a part of that community in the first place. I love that notion. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I will say, like one of our most fun features, at least for me. So I am constantly traveling, I'm constantly going to conferences. Like I'm constantly like you know, my job necessitates me to go and meet a lot of people, but I'm actually like really shy and kind of reserved, like in my heart of hearts. And so when you go, they're so overwhelming. There's so many people. And one of the really like lovely features of Nia is it makes really meaningful connections with others. So be like, hey, Nasya, you and Todd would really hit it off. You guys like constantly talk about communities and blah, 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 and all the things that connect you. You guys should connect. And I'll be like, oh, I don't know. I'm scared to meet new people. And it's sort of like you're like little cheerleader, like you can do it. This is the things that Todd loves. And that would connect you guys and go and have that. Do you want me to make that connection? Can I introduce you? And when you have that sort of like that concierge in your pocket that allows you to go and just have a good conversation, like that is really powerful. And so that's just like one of the things that I think is really fun. And also just like, I love that like Nia knows all my preferences. It knows that I have 2 kids. So it's not going to start telling, like, pointing me to things when I'm traveling of things that are not going to be appropriate for my children if they're traveling with me. All those things that just take time to onboard or any of those, like, we can move in a really like delightful way, which I think is sort of a big differentiator. Like it's fun and it's easy, and it allows me to just get what I need as quickly as possible. Um, and that's great for the customer. And then on the organization side, like if you know who you're talking to, if you know what they need, you're able to make really amazing both short-term decisions. Like, I always use this, like, if I'm at a theme park and my 2-year-old is screaming her face off in line, near term, send in a princess. 2-year-old is happy, life is good. But if every 2-year-old is screaming in the same part of that same line over time, it's no longer a 2-year-old issue, it's a queuing issue. And so how do you make sort of really good short-term decisioning and really, really robust long-term decisioning that will just make the experience better for your customers, make the experience better for your staff, all of those things. So it has a lot of nuance there, but it's a really robust ecosystem that answers for a lot of the challenges that we have in connecting with one another. Yeah.
That's incredible. I like I said, I can't wait to see it in action. But I think this makes a great transition into maybe some practical applications of your lessons for community builders or community managers right now, or organizations that know they have this and it's maybe not performing up to spec. Your experiences as someone who designs customer experiences, great customer experiences, or maybe your experiences of having worked with a Disney Imagineer who kind of thinks about all of these these spaces. Are there some general lessons that we can apply to communities now as they exist that can make them better experiences? Like I mean, I don't know. Like there are some pretty common best practices around like onboarding people into, professional communities or branded communities, email marketing, campaigns or journeys that, that are sent to that customer, personal welcomes, introduction threads, in these spaces. Like it's kind of a tired old set of plays for that. Some of them work, some of them maybe don't so well. I was reading a piece by Richard Millington this morning about saying most customer onboarding journeys suck and they just aren't going to work really well. I don't know if you have a perspective on that world.
Yeah, I mean, I think every community needs different things. So I think saying this email marketing campaign is going to be good for all types of communities, I think that's not going to really ever work, because I think you need to know who your community is. You need to know what their needs are. Sure. And I think if you understand your customer, if you understand the community needs and how they want to be engaged, tailoring, I mean, you can have some tools in your back pocket, certainly. So like, you don't want to do everything from scratch, but if as you're building community, if the goal is to create a space where people feel like they're cared for, they feel like they belong, they feel like they're welcome, which are just sort of needs of being human, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the basis of what your strategy is. And so, when we're thinking about, like, when I've done, big experiences for big brands in my previous life, we always start with, who are we trying to reach and what makes them tick, and why would they want to come to this thing? What would be fun? Yeah. Right. What would make them feel like they're part of it, right? Just like simple, like human, like the same thing I would be, like if I'm throwing a party for some friends, like if we get all the like business stuff out of the way and to say, we're building this community, the goal of this community is X, what the community needs is Y, this is why they'll come to it. And what is that best onboarding? Maybe it is a, very personal, hey, welcome to the community. This is where and like that's part of why we built Nia, like is that you can do that at scale. Like it's really hard for Todd and the community that you're part of to talk to every single new member of every community that you're part of. That's not
absolutely
scalable, right?
Every community manager faces that. And so like the idea of having something that's scalable that can do that is pretty incredible. And if it can do that with empathy, more than
answer all the think about how many times you have a thing, you get the same 15 questions, right? Like you have a list of that's why FAQs exist, right? Everyone asks the same handful of questions. If you had a way of delivering that information that feels like it's a conversation, that feels like you're actually talking to someone who's part of the community, who understands the community, who understands all the players in that community, that onboarding is amazing. It gives you the information you need. It gives it in a way that's scalable, and it also gives a way that feels human. It feels like you're being welcomed and you feel like you belong somewhere. And so I think you have to think about the psychology of human nature coupled with making customer specific ideas with doing that in a way that's scalable. And so I've always been focused on the other two things of I'm building really cool bespoke customer experiences that everyone's going to love. And now we had the technology to be able to do those things in a scalable way. And I think that's where technology gets really exciting in terms of what's next. And so I don't know if that answered your question. I'm hey, do these
totally
5 things.
No,
but I think every community is different. And if you do an email campaign in one community, the other community will be God, these emails are the worst, right? It's not, people are complicated and people feel different things. And so I think you have to start with who they are and what they need, and then tailor that to that community.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And so I often think that a lot of it has to do with just even how that community is structured as well. Like if you enter a community space and there are 50 options of places for you to go, it's hard for me to know experience-wise, where do I begin? Where do I even, it's one of the problems with Slack as a platform, where if it's grown beyond, I don't know, 50 people, it becomes untenable to track all the conversations and all the different channels that pop up and grow up overnight. So kind of maybe funneling that experience a little bit more intentionally is something that would be helpful. And it's something that a Concierge AI would do really nicely.
Really well. And it's the entire journey, right? From the minute you're interested in doing something or being part of something, how do you, it's we said in the experience, entering the threshold, and then how do you enter the experience? And then in the actual experience, is it free flowing? Can you go anywhere, or do we direct it? Do we direct how that narrative is taking place and what that experience is? And then the exit through the gift shop, what is that end of that experience that allows people to connect even deeper with the experience that they just had? And then afterwards, how do you keep that conversation going so they come back and become part of the experience again? And that is, it's like a linear thing that's sort of the experience is a sort of very round, robust thing, and then ends with a linear thing, but it all feeds back in again. And so it's that constant ecosystem and build of how do you get people from every single touch point and every one of those in between moments feel like they're part of that community, and that they do have agency, that they can discover the community as they need to, but that it's not just everything all at once. When you go into a Slack community, there's 500 channels, and you're I don't know where to start. So, and people are different, and people learn differently, right? Some people want to go and dive deep and get really into the nitty gritty, and some people just want to skim and and so we have to understand the type of learners that our community is entailing as well. So
I love that. And I think that it calls back to the idea of the hero's journey as well, that you're enabling a heroic journey for that member as they come in. And as in the best heroic journeys, there's usually a mentor along to help you find your way through that process.
100%. I use I find a lot of these narrative arcs, when it comes to like 3D and experiential physical space, sometimes it's a little like that. Some of those, they don't always work as seamlessly as if you're in like a linear space, because people have agency in these moments. But I do love this idea of like a hero's journey, and you do have that mentor, you do have that person who is going to take you along and help you at every single touch point. And it actually is a really beautiful way when it comes to things that are not linear, right? If you're, we're talking to cruise lines, for example, right? Cruise lines is not a linear experience. Like, yes, you book your trip, you get in the car, you get to the thing, and then when you're on the ship, you have agency in how you want to experience.
Go anywhere,
right?
Yeah.
But at all those touch points, you still need support to be able to say, what do I do next? Right? Like, how do I do this? And you don't always want to go talk to someone. Sometimes you just want to, like, you don't want to talk to like a guest services person. Sometimes you're like, hey, what's coming up on the agenda? Or, hey, I want to go see something in port. What can I do? Right? Or if you're staying at a hotel, like, what's happening, in the city tonight? Like, what cool music is playing? You just want to be able to get information quickly so that you can then go and create the journey that you want in a facilitated way.
I love that. That's incredibly powerful. And what I find so exciting about that concierge concept is that yes, it will lead you on a hero's journey, because of course we're all the heroes of our own stories, right? And
100% always.
To feel empowered by that is really wonderful. But I think that the concierge, when it really does its job well, helping me connect with others and to build that sense of community, puts us on a pilgrim's journey as well. And so we're traveling along with others through that. I think it's such an amazing thing that you're doing, Nasya. You are at the frontier and pushing against the frontier of helping people to connect in better ways and building better experiences. I'm so grateful for you to be a guest with me here today. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you right now, like, who is there anyone you're reading or watching that you're really kind of excited about right now? You think they're like just really thinking in some innovative ways?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. And it's interesting because particularly in AI, it's all moving so fast, right? That there's so many interesting things that are coming. So like kind of pulling one thing to the top, I think there's so many interesting things that are being done in that space. And from an experiences perspective, I think any of what I've read recently that really, well, I'm gonna put a plug for my my founding partner. So and I've gotten some tidbits of this. Her Stephanie Riggs, her new book, Quantum Narratives, is launching at South by Southwest in just a couple of weeks. And really, when we're talking about how do we tell stories in ways that are not necessarily linear, not necessarily, it's a deep dive into how the complexities of the narrative journeys that we have when we're building experiences. I'm not doing it very good justice, but I've been getting all of these little tidbits in, and I'm so, at her last book, the End of Storytelling, was one of my favorite books I've ever read, in terms of, so
that's going right on my reading list.
Not just because she's my founding partner, but because she's such a fantastic thinker and writer in terms of how she distills very complex information and building experiences in really, really just sort of easy to understand ways that are digestible, but also really thought-provoking. So I would say those are two. And then I'm part of the World Experience Organization. I'm one of the founding members of that, and every week someone else is writing something amazing or a new book is coming out. So definitely check out WXO, because whenever I need an energetic boost of like what's happening in the experience economy, and that's where I go for my inspiration. And I know Joe Pine has a new book coming out, or maybe it just came out. I haven't read it yet, but a lot of interesting stuff coming in that way too. So
that's incredible, and it's a world that I need to know more about. So I'm definitely adding both of those books and the WXO to my list of things to check out. Nasya, if somebody wants to connect with you to maybe talk about your startup
Yeah.
or experience
Yeah.
marketing in general, what's the best way to get in touch?
You can certainly find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Nasya Kamrat on LinkedIn, which is not everyone can say, which is great. But also, you can feel free to email me at nasya@niaxp.com. That's my first name at niaxp.com. And I'm really excited to meet folks who are also interested in how do we push the boundaries of technology and community building and experiences. And for particularly brands who don't know what's next and how to bring this type of thing into the world, but having a lot of really fun conversations.
Nasya Kamrat, it has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show. And for those of you who are tuning in to this special episode, would love to hear from you. Please leave your comments in the YouTube channel or in LinkedIn where we will post this. I always try to respond to each and every person who connects there. And I would humbly ask, if this was interesting to you, please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well for Clocktower Advisors, and follow our company page on LinkedIn as well. Until then, please be good for yourself. Keep building wonderful communities, and we will be back again very soon.